Welcome to our present state versus history on Speaker. Here we are focused on the current events of our culture through the principles of our history, trying to make sense of the culture and the mindset of today. I am your host, Ray Mayfield. Okay, folks, here we are again, back on the pod. I know been a little bit sketchy in my consistency, but been trying to make sure that I'm staying on track here. You know, we started this podcast not intending on becoming another one of these talking heads out here that's just talking the problem. And I'm very solution orientated. I felt like I've been getting kind of baited into some of these conversations and things. So I've just kind of been backing up, clearing my head. I made mention at the last podcast that we were going to probably start heading more into things closer attached to the Word of God, and I believe that's the direction we're going to be going for a while. And I've got a lot of information. I've been doing some research on some different things that's been being exposed out here, and I just, you know, my objective here is not to change your thinking process, because I know it kind of sounds counterproductive when I say I really don't care what you think. I'm not trying to change people's minds. There are lots of people out here that absolutely reject the Word of God. They absolutely reject sound logic or reasoning, and they've committed themselves to their foolishness, and I'm all for them. You know, this is where I get in trouble with a lot of different, should we say, sections of our cultural lifestyles, people that claim to be Christians and religious folks and whatever. You know, I get accused of trying to save our nation. I get accused of trying to correct all these wrongs, and that's really not my objective here. I don't claim to have any insight beyond just right reason. The things that I have dug up in the last several years, I guess, when I started really getting interested in finding out a solution to this train wreck, I realized that, you know, I'm no brainiac. I'm just an old, simple thinking redneck out here who can comprehend what he reads and has the ability to, you know, logically deduct the things that I'm looking at. I guess it's from my mechanical background. I don't know. It's a blessing of God or a calling, whatever you want to call it. Do I believe that God's called me and set me in a place to have a voice and speak these things out? Absolutely. That's why I'm doing it. I look at some of this and I think, you know, on the natural aspects of things, I think, man, you're a fool. You're out here trying to get people to support you and you're telling them what they don't want to hear. You think that's really going to work? Well, it's not up to me on whether it works or not. It's God's deal. I do believe in the absolutism of the Word of God. I do believe in the absolutism of God's in control of this universe. And I live by that. And I will probably die by those principles. I've quit better jobs than most people have ever had, not based on money, but based on the principle of right and wrong. I live by those things because right is right, and that's the way it is, damn it. And this country has got to the idea, this place in their mindset, that we can somehow just ignore the facts and create our own reality and expect that false narrative to become the truth. And it's never going to happen. We've known that it's never going to happen by history. We know it's not going to happen by the current events of things in people's lives and just flat out right reason. So I'm going to spend a little time today on this, and I'm just going to let this go as long as it takes to get it all done. It's probably going to be a multi-part podcast because of the limitations of time that we have on these broadcasts, but that's okay. I'm just going to go with what I've drawn up here, and we're going to deal with some real issues that are at hand right now. So check us out on the True Gospel Church website, truegospelchurch.org. You'll find the links there to the New Life Fellowship Church in Neosho, Missouri. Pastor Mark and Bonnie Buzzard do a wonderful job there. If you don't have a home church, if you're seeking the things of God and you just want to understand more truth to the Word of God, I highly recommend that you come to services there at the New Life Fellowship in Neosho, because the unadulterated Word of God is being taught there in as pure a form as it can be. Is everything there exactly the way it ought to be? Well, I'm sure if you want to find fault, you'll be able to. But the people there love God. They're doing the best they can to serve God. And honestly, that's all we can expect out of anybody. So I highly recommend that church in the Neosho, Missouri area. If you're there, there's all kinds of resource information on our website at thetruegospelchurch.org. You can find links to the University of Christian Studies and Seminaries, where Dr. Guy and Sister Kathy have done a wonderful job putting together a college there that is accredited. You can pursue further education in almost any field of expertise that you want to in that area. And you contact them through that website and get all the ins and outs and information there. You can go to school through the correspondence, or you can go to be on campus, or however it works out for you. Contact Dr. Guy, Sister Kathy, and the staff there, and they'll be more than happy to help you out with your endeavors for further education. The Black Robe Regiment and Liberty Pastors is a resource there for a lot of information on the so-called what they're calling us now is Christian nationalists, I guess, which I don't understand why that's supposed to be a derogatory term, because the nation that I live in is the United States, and I support my government, and I support my Constitution, and I support the Christian views and foundings that it was established on. So I guess if you're going to call me a Christian nationalist, I guess so be it. But you can find information there on the Black Robe Regiment, which is part of our history. How we became a nation was very, should I say, not, I don't want to say pivotal, but the Black Robe Regiment was very instrumental, there's a good word, for the development of our, should I say, rebellion against the British and the Declaration of Independence, which we just celebrated. In fact, this is July the 6th, so we just came out of the 4th of July celebration. And all you veterans out there that served and those that are currently serving, my hat's off to you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your service, appreciate what you've done and what you're doing to preserve the freedoms that give us the opportunity to sit here behind this microphone and declare these truths that the founders said were self-evident, which I'm finding more and more. The self-evident part is more difficult as the days go on. You can find links to this podcast on our Facebook page, our Present State versus History, which is the same name as the Spreaker podcast that I hope you're listening to this on now, which is our Present State versus History on Spreaker, and any other platform where you listen to your podcast, you can find us. So there's the commercial. Thank you for it. I appreciate your support. There's a link button on that truegospelchurch.org website where you can donate, help us keep this thing going if you believe in what we are doing. So now I'm going to try to get into, excuse me, some of this. I don't even know what to describe. Some of these posts that are going out on the internet, some of these things that are being stated by citizens of our fair country. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about college, and I said something about being educated, and they made the comment being indoctrinated, And I try to resist those kinds of tags and things that are being established from our institutions of higher learning. But the longer this goes and the more I see, it's getting really hard not to buy into some of that false narratives. But you see, where I have such a problem with all of that is I'm a guy that believes that most people out here in this world have the capacity to rightly divide the things that they're seeing and what's going on around this nation. Why we don't do it, now that's another thing altogether, which it falls into some of these characteristics of human nature. And human nature is one of these things. I mean, I was reading a post here the other day where the individual was basically trying to say that there's no such thing as human nature. And that isn't really where I was going to start, but I guess we're here, so we'll just roll with it, okay? I don't even understand the logic or capacity that would be behind a statement declaring that human nature doesn't exist, that it's a false narrative. I just can't get a hold of that in my head at all, because any kind of logical deduction of history or government or just the developments of life on this planet is going to automatically bring up human nature. I mean, it displays the natural tendencies of the nature of man, which is human nature, automatically develop and expose themselves through patterns anytime we study the developments or activities of mankind. I mean, to say that human nature is a fallacy and it doesn't exist is, I think calling it insanity is a inaccurate description, because I think even people who are insane by the definition, which means we keep doing the same thing over and over and over expecting different results, that's insanity. Even those people realize that there's a level of human nature involved in their behavior. It's absolute crazy. If you look at all, I mean, I don't care which direction you want to go with what subject, you're going to find evidence of human nature. If we go to, being we're dealing with government and things here, we go to the government aspects of things. Our founding fathers even believed in the nature of the human animal or human nature and the things that had to be protected from, because that was the whole purpose of our Constitution in the first place. In the affairs of government, that is the role of government. The basic surmise of government is to protect the masses from the few who are operating on the negative aspects of human nature. I mean, that's about as basic of a definition as you can get out there. The founding fathers here, and this is from a textbook dealing with history and the creation of our Constitution. It says here, the founding fathers were optimistic as well as realistic about human nature. They realized that all human beings are mixed of sunshine and shadow. The sunshine consists of the perfectibility of human reason. It makes government and civilization possible. The darker side of human nature is the imperfectibility of the human passion and man's faulty sense of judgment that makes government necessary. As James Madison stated, as there is a degree of depravity in mankind which requires a certain degree of circumspection and distrust, So there are qualities in human nature that justify a certain portion of esteem and confidence. The founder's goal was to retrieve the ancient principles which would allow the sunshine side of human nature to enjoy virtually unlimited freedom while setting up appropriate safeguards to prevent the doleful shadow of human passions, greed, and lust for power from spreading a permanent dark ages across the face of the globe. So, passion, greed, lust for power are part of human nature. And they are the things or the catalyst, if you go back and study history, that brought what we call the Dark Ages, a period of history upon all humanity. And the whole point of our Constitution is to prevent this and safeguard the overrunning zealousness of greed, lust, and power and passions for such things to override and control the masses. I mean, after all, we look at history, we see Alexander the great conqueror. What was his purpose for conquering? Well, his great lust for passions of human nature to rule and control. We can go all the way back into the scriptures and we find the Tower of Babel, Nimrod. You know, I said I was going to start referring more to the Word of God because that is the basis and the cement that holds this whole catalyst together. And you go back to Nimrod, the earliest record that we have of the human nature and the depravity aspects of what the founders are talking about here that is rising up. You know, we have Nimrod going to bring everybody all into one movement together. We'll all come together. We can all have our own gods and we can all serve our own form of religion and we can all come into one unity banner together as long as you all submit to me, Nimrod, as the chief god and the king of all kings, and I'm the man that is in control because after all, this is my tower and I'm allowing y'all to have a part in that and we're all going to go together as one big happy family. Does that sound familiar? The very first account that we have of the human nature going array because somebody always wants to be the king of the hill. And it doesn't matter what the device is, there will always be a form of government that will develop itself within a massive crowd of people. I mean, for Pete's sake, we go back to recent history here. Just here a while back, we got the people, they all moved into Seattle and they were taking over their autonomous zone, they called it, and it's all just a bunch of peace-loving protesters all hanging out, peace, love, and security. And I told my wife, I said, when that thing all got started, I said, you just watch those officials in that city. They refuse to deal with that, and they're just going to let it develop and give them their safe zone where they can all hang out and do their thing, because that's what they've got in their head, that this is going to be, utopia. We're going to show you how we can operate without government, without any oversight. And I said, you just watch. There'll be a form of government start to develop within that group of people, because if they just put a wall up around them and let them have their way, sooner or later somebody's going to start rising up. There's going to be conflict within because somebody's got to prove that they're the bigger whatever, and somebody's going to be king of the hill. And it wasn't 3 weeks we started having shootings and killings within the so-called peace zone. Why? Because I'm going to be ruler over you. That's why. Human nature is developing and showing itself, because this is the natural progression of mob rule. It doesn't make any difference what the mob is, what the source of catalyst that brings them all together is. Eventually, somebody is going to be in charge. Eventually, somebody is going to be king. And then when somebody becomes king, what's the next natural progression? Somebody else wants to be king. And immediately we have conflict. This is the purpose of government, to prevent these conflicts. That's why we have a thing called law and order. We all live by law, and therefore we all have order, because we all know the law is not to be broken, and we can all self-regulate in accordance to that law. And if we don't self-regulate, we become regulated. These are just basic laws of nature, rules of the road, if you will. This common sense tells us these things are in place, and they will be in place. How do we know these things? We know these things mainly by the Word of God, if we study the laws of God, because God is the creator of heaven and earth, and He has established these laws. You say, well, see, there's the problem, because all these people out here that want to live in this utopia, they want to live in this lawless society. They do not want to acknowledge that there is a God. This is the first premises. This is when they say there is no such thing as human nature. What they're really saying is there is no such thing as absolutes, and there is no God who created us, and there is no law, and there is no supreme being, and there is no divine law and order, because we don't want to live under the guidelines of a God or a law or any superiority over us. We want to be our own king, which is exactly the human nature element that got Adam in trouble, that's got every war that we've ever had started, that's created every chaos that history has developed and kept record of that we can go back on. So to be able to say that human nature is a fallacy that doesn't really exist is absolute nonsense. It's an absolute display of somebody who is not using their right reason in order to logically deduct to come to truth, because there is such a thing as truth. And it's not my words. I'm not the one saying this. I'm just telling you the way it has been established through history. There's a man named John Locke who was a philosopher, if you will, from the ancient days. And he was somebody that everybody acknowledged as credible in his philosophy, if you will. And he's talking about the attributes of human beings and God, and he's talking about the ability of knowing that God is, and that there is a God. And I'm just going to break into some of his statements here. It says here, now this is John Locke speaking. He says, man is capable of knowing many things about God. The creator must of necessity be a can't pronounce the word, of reason in thought process, of reasoning and thinking. A being for man is I cannot pronounce that word, excuse me for that. For man has the ability of reasoning and being. So therefore God must also reason. That's what he's saying. And a certain ability that comes from the creator, because the law of anything that is created is beneath that has been created. And he uses the example of a rock. He said a rock could never have produced a being like a man, for a rock cannot logically deduct or think. We also know that the divine creator has a sense of compassion and love, for he gave man the similitude of these qualities. The creator would also reflect a fine sense of right and wrong, and also a sense of indignation and even anger with those who violate laws of right action. In other words, God has a strong sense of justice remorse for wrong also arouses a sense of compassion in the Creator, just as it does in human beings whom He has designed. There are other attributes of man which human beings must necessity share of their Creator. Man is made in the image of God. One would be a sense of humor. The Creator must also be a great artist and have a visual plane. Everything the Creator organizes is in the terms of beauty through color, form, and contrast. Obviously, man can enjoy only to the finite degree the capacity the Creator has appreciated upon him. The vast panorama of sensory satisfaction, which we call beauty. So, as John Locke says, there are many things that can be known about God. And because any thoughtful person can gain the appreciation and conviction of these many attributes of the Creator, John Locke said that an atheist has failed to apply his divine capacity for reason and observation. The American founding fathers agreed with Locke. They considered the existence of the Creator of the most fundamental premises underlying all self-evident truth. Okay, folks, we're going to have to break in here for the sake of time and make this a continuation. We'll kick that next episode out. It'll be the continuation of this, and I hope you're gaining something from this. Hope that we're giving you some food for thought, information to go check and lurk and search. Until we meet again on the pod, have a wonderful day.